Hello everyone. Here is the story. HOA Karen hosted bachelor parties in my pool weekly, so I hosted a hog farmers convention in hers. Please listen along, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts. We truly appreciate all feedback as it helps the channel grow and improve. Also, feel free to share a little about where you live, your age, and your interests. We are incredibly grateful for your support. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's get started. You approved every person standing here, Linda. You just never bothered to ask what kind of farmers we were. Her face went still as another pickup rolled into the cul-de-sac at 7:12 on Saturday morning. Clean tires whispered across the pavement. Doors closed one after another. The sharp smell of chlorine drifted over Linda Hartwell's stone patio, mixing with wet grass, fresh coffee, and breakfast sandwiches warming beneath a white catering tent. 50 members of the Polk County Pork Producers Cooperative moved calmly around her backyard, setting up registration tables, folding chairs, water conservation displays, and sealed equipment cases. No livestock, no mud, no mess. Just farmers in clean shirts, blue jeans, and disposable shoe covers preparing for a professional agricultural conference beside the most expensive swimming pool in Willow Creek Estates. Linda stood outside her back door in a pale robe and house shoes, staring at the green event wristbands circling every guest's arm. Her white Range Rover sat beyond the fence, boxed in by 3 registered vendor trucks whose parking spaces she had approved herself. "Get these people out of my backyard," she said. I held up my phone. The booking confirmation glowed beneath her name. Hartwell Social Events. 60 guests permitted. Professional networking approved. Outdoor catering approved. Product displays approved. The payment had cleared 3 weeks earlier. "You accepted the reservation," I said. "That is not what I agreed to." Earl Jenkins stepped forward carrying a binder thick with insurance certificates, vendor permits, and the site plan Linda had digitally signed. Earl had raised hogs for 37 years and chaired our cooperative. With the patience of a man who had survived droughts, market crashes, and county budget meetings, he unfolded the insurance certificate across her patio table. "Everything is documented, ma'am. We will finish by 4 o'clock, and our cleaning crew arrives at 3:30. Linda looked from the binder to the blue cooperative banner hanging beside her pool. The filter hummed beneath the concrete deck. Ice shifted inside sealed coolers. Behind us, a presenter tested a small irrigation pump that would demonstrate how farms could reuse wash water without wasting a gallon. Linda's doorbell camera pointed directly at the registration area, recording every word. I placed a cream-colored envelope beside Earl's binder. The Hartwell Social Events logo was printed across the front. Linda recognized it immediately. She had used identical envelopes while collecting money from strangers at my family pool every Saturday for nearly 3 months. "This booking is canceled," she said. "Then refund the payment and explain why your listing allows professional conferences," I replied. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. She had spent 12 weekends turning my father's pool into her private event business, using an old maintenance key, a questionable agreement, and the confidence that I would never find where the money went. I had needed only one legal reservation at her own pool to bring the receipts, the witnesses, and her company records into the same backyard. Around us, the farmers continued setting up without raising their voices. Linda had expected chaos. What she got was the cleanest event she had ever approved, and the first one that arrived carrying proof of everything she had done. 3 months earlier, that same chlorine smell meant something completely different. My name is Caleb Turner, and my family has worked 8.4 acres outside Des Moines for 3 generations. Our farmhouse stood there before Willow Creek Estates had matching stone mailboxes, trimmed hedges, or a homeowners association office with tinted windows. My father, Robert, built the pool behind our house in 1998 after a strong harvest finally left enough money for something that was not a tractor repair, feed bill, or property tax payment. He poured part of the concrete himself and hired a local contractor for the plumbing. I was 16 when he handed me a skimmer net and told me that anything worth enjoying was worth maintaining. That pool became the quietest place on the farm. After 12-hour summer days, we would leave our boots near the pool house, rinse the dust from our arms, and sit beneath the porch lights while cicadas filled the trees. My mother hosted birthdays there. My sister Rachel learned to swim there. Dad recorded every filter change, chemical test, pump repair, and water reading in a blue maintenance ledger that still smelled faintly of chlorine when I opened it. He never rented the pool. He never advertised it. The county permit classified it for private family use, and our insurance policy said the same thing. When Willow Creek was developed around us, the planners marked our land as an excluded agricultural parcel. We shared the public road, but we did not share their rules, dues, clubhouse, or community pool. Dad mounted a small wooden sign beside the gate that read Turner Family Pool. The letters faded over the years, but the meaning never did. After he passed away, I inherited the farmhouse, the farm, the brass pool house key, and every responsibility attached to them. I also inherited his habit of keeping records. Water bills went into one folder. Maintenance receipts went into another. The old analog security camera above the pool house remained in place even after its monitor stopped working. I assumed the entire system was dead, so I never removed it. That mistake would later become one of the best pieces of luck I ever had. The only other key had once belonged to Blue Creek Pool Service, the company Dad used before I learned to handle the equipment myself. Their technician retired, the company closed, and nobody could tell me what happened to the duplicate. I changed the main gate lock, but left the pool house cylinder alone because no one had used that key in years. Then Linda Hartwell noticed the water. She first approached me during an HOA summer picnic, smiling beneath a wide sun hat while guests crowded around the Willow Creek community pool. She said the association needed overflow space for adult weekend gatherings and offered a small maintenance payment. I declined in writing. I explained the insurance limits, the private access road, the lack of commercial permits, and the simple fact that the pool belonged to my family. Linda read the letter, folded it once, and smiled. Community cooperation has a way of becoming necessary, she said. I thought it was another empty HOA warning. What I did not know was that she had already found the old maintenance key. Linda Hartwell treated Willow Creek like a business portfolio with sidewalks. She had been HOA president for 6 years, and every year she found a new way to turn neighborhood rules into revenue. She photographed work trucks parked after sunset, measured grass with a folding ruler, and mailed violation notices on thick cream paper that looked more expensive than the fines themselves. Her white Range Rover moved through the neighborhood at the same time every morning, slow enough for her to inspect trash cans, fence stains, and porch decorations from behind tinted glass. At the community pool, she checked wristbands personally and charged guest fees through Hartwell Social Events, the company she ran from an office above a real estate agency downtown. She called the charges coordination fees. Residents called them the price of avoiding an argument. Linda also sold houses in Willow Creek, and every listing described resort-style living, private amenities, and exclusive adult social events. The community pool looked good in photographs, but it was small, crowded, and closed at 9 o'clock. My pool sat half a mile away behind mature trees, with a larger deck, a pool house, and enough parking along the farm lane for catering vehicles. To Linda, it was not family property. It was in used inventory. Her first written proposal arrived 3 days after the summer picnic. She called my pool an overflow adult amenity and offered $200 per Saturday for maintenance. The agreement gave the HOA access from noon until midnight, permission to bring outside vendors, and authority to manage guest lists. It also required me to accept liability for the property while Linda controlled the events. I marked every problem in red ink and returned the packet and signed. My letter explained that the pool was licensed for private use, that the farm roads served working equipment, and that no commercial activity had been approved on the parcel. Linda answered with a single sentence. The board will consider alternative access arrangements. That phrase stayed in my head. She did not say another location. She said access. A week later, I saw her talking to a former Blue Creek Pool Service employee outside a hardware store. He was an older man named Dennis who had serviced our pump years earlier. Linda stood beside him holding a small envelope while he turned something metallic between his fingers. When she noticed my truck, she smiled and slipped the object into her handbag. I asked Dennis about it the next day. He said Linda had wanted help identifying an old pool lock and claimed the HOA had inherited maintenance rights from the previous owner. He assumed she had paperwork. I checked the pool house that evening. The brass cylinder showed faint new scratches around the keyway. Nothing inside was missing. The pump ran normally. Dad's ledger remained on the shelf. I changed the gate padlock before dark and added a motion light above the entrance. What I did not change was the old brass lock on the pool house door. I thought the missing duplicate key would only open a room containing filters, test strips, and cleaning tools. Linda saw something else. She saw a way inside, a believable story, and a property she could rent without paying the person who owned it. The first event happened on a Friday night 2 weeks later. I had spent the day inspecting a water recycling system at a farm nearly 90 miles west, and the sun was already gone when I turned onto our gravel lane. Music reached me before the headlights found the house. A steady bass rhythm rolled through the trees, mixed with laughter and the splash of water. For one confused second, I thought Rachel had invited friends over. Then I saw 12 unfamiliar vehicles parked along the lane, including a catering van, positioned close enough to block access to the equipment shed. String lights glowed around the pool deck. The chlorine smelled stronger than usual, sharp enough to sting the back of my throat when I stepped out of the truck. Nearly 30 adults were gathered around the water for a pre-wedding celebration. Some sat beneath rented umbrellas with plates of food. Others played trivia games near the pool house or floated on oversized inflatable chairs. Nothing about the guests appeared dangerous or inappropriate. They had been told they were attending a properly booked private event. Linda stood beside a folding reception table wearing a white blazer and holding a clipboard. A clear cash box rested beside her, filled with cream-colored envelopes carrying the Hartwell Social Events logo. When she saw me, her expression barely changed. "You are home early," she said. "This is my home." I looked toward the pool house. The brass door stood open. Fresh scratches surrounded the lock. White towels bearing Linda's company initials had been stacked on Dad's old maintenance bench. "Who authorized this?" "Willow Creek has an amenity license." She opened a folder and showed me a photocopied document with my father's name near the bottom. The signature was faint, the wording unfamiliar, and the parcel description incomplete. My father never rented this pool. The agreement says otherwise. I asked her to end the event and move every vehicle off the farm lane. Linda lifted her phone and began recording. "These guests paid for a confirmed reservation. Disrupting them could expose you to a claim." One of the attendees approached, holding a digital receipt. He looked embarrassed rather than confrontational. "Sir, we paid $1,800 through Hartwell Social Events. We were told the HOA managed this location." I photographed the receipt, the reservation number, and the company name. Then I explained that the property was privately owned and not approved for commercial gatherings. The guests listened. Most began collecting their belongings immediately. The caterer closed the food containers, and the music stopped without argument. Linda watched the deck empty while her pen pressed a deep mark into the clipboard. Before leaving, the customer emailed me the complete booking confirmation. It described my pool as Willow Creek Private Annex and listed Linda as the authorized venue manager. By midnight, the last vehicle had cleared the lane. Wet footprints crossed the concrete Dad had poured by hand. The filter strained beneath the pool house floor, and the water meter showed nearly 1,000 gallons more usage than a normal weekend. On the reception table, Linda had left one cream-colored envelope behind. Inside was a printed event schedule covering every Saturday for the next 12 weeks. The first party had not been a mistake. It had been the opening night of a business she had already built on my property. I replaced the pool house lock before sunrise and installed a new deadbolt on the outer gate, then sent Linda a certified notice revoking any claim of access to the property. I attached the county permit, the excluded parcel map, the insurance restrictions, and a photograph of the event schedule she had left behind. Her response arrived that afternoon on Willow Creek letterhead. She claimed the association possessed a continuing amenity license and warned that interfering with confirmed reservations could create financial liability. The following Saturday, a catering van appeared at the end of the farm lane at 11:30 in the morning. I met the driver before he passed the gate. He showed me a paid reservation for 24 guests, complete with photographs of my pool and directions through the agricultural entrance. I explained the situation, photographed the receipt, and helped him contact the customer before anyone unloaded. Linda refunded the booking only after the customer threatened to dispute the charge. The Saturday after that, another group arrived. Then another. Each reservation carried the same green wristbands, cream-colored envelopes, and Hartwell Social Events logo. Linda had sold 12 weekends in advance and refused to admit the venue was never hers. I stopped each gathering before it began, spoke calmly with the customers, and documented every payment. Most guests were embarrassed. Some were angry, but their anger belonged with the woman who had taken their money. My water bill still climbed because Linda's staff entered early to fill coolers, rinse the deck, and test equipment before I caught them. The filter ran longer than normal. Towels disappeared. The farm gate was repeatedly left open, forcing me to check the livestock fencing before every equipment run. One delivery truck blocked the lane while I was waiting to move a feed trailer, costing nearly 2 hours of work. I replaced the main gate lock again and added a keypad, but someone entered through the narrow service path behind the pool house. Linda had distributed an old maintenance diagram showing every access point on the property. Then she posted on the Willow Creek community page that I was sabotaging neighborhood events and refusing to honor a historic agreement. She described herself as a volunteer, trying to preserve community traditions. She did not mention the $1,800 payments entering her private company account. The pressure reached my insurance company when an anonymous complaint reported regular commercial pool use. My agent called on Monday morning and said another unauthorized event could trigger cancellation of the policy. That was the moment the problem stopped being an inconvenience and became a threat to the entire property. I shut down the pump, covered the pool, and posted a private property notice at every entrance. Linda responded by sending me an invoice for lost event revenue. Rachel spread the booking receipts, water bills, maintenance records, and customer emails across my kitchen table. 12 Saturdays. More than $16,000 collected. Not one payment made to me. Not one deposit reported to the HOA. At the bottom of the stack was a screenshot from Hartwell Social Events showing my father's pool advertised through the end of summer. Rachel turned the laptop toward me. She is not going to stop because the schedule is already sold. I looked through the window at the covered water behind the farmhouse. Linda believed the bookings gave her leverage. What she had really created was a 12-week paper trail linking her company, her customers, and her old key to property she had never owned. Rachel called Mason Reed the next morning. He had handled land transfers, farm easements, and commercial leases across Polk County for almost 20 years, and he did not waste time pretending Linda's document deserved respect. He placed the amenity license beneath a desk lamp, read the first page twice, then asked for every version Linda had sent. The paper looked old because someone had scanned it in low contrast, but the details were new. The Willow Creek logo in the upper corner had not been adopted until 4 years after my father died. Hartwell Social Events was listed as the authorized coordinator, even though state records showed Linda created the company 7 years later. The agreement referred to Turner Parcel 14, but our county tax number ended in 41. Even the typeface belonged to a contract template released long after the date printed beside my father's signature. Mason tapped the bottom of the page with one finger. This is not an inherited agreement. It is a modern document wearing an old date. He ordered a certified title search and found no easement, recreational license, access covenant, or shared amenity right attached to my land. The county recorder had the original development map, and my 8.4 acres were outlined in red with the words excluded agricultural parcel. Linda had built her entire claim on a photocopy that had never been recorded anywhere. While Mason prepared a formal demand, Rachel followed the money. She matched reservation numbers from the customers with public payment confirmations and deposits visible in the receipts they had forwarded. Every charge went to Hartwell Social Events. None went to Willow Creek. None appeared in the monthly financial summaries Thomas Avery had posted for residents. The green wristbands were purchased by Linda's company. The towels were invoiced to the HOA, and the advertising photographs had been taken from the edge of my property without permission. Linda had used association resources to support a private business, then used a false agreement to keep me quiet. We still needed proof that she had entered the pool house herself. I remembered the old analog camera above the door. The monitor in Dad's workshop had failed years earlier, so I had assumed the system was useless. Mason asked whether I had ever traced the cable. I followed it through the wall, across a ceiling beam, and into a locked storage cabinet behind the chemical shelves. Inside sat a dusty digital recorder with one green light still glowing. The backup battery had kept the internal clock running, and the hard drive stored motion clips instead of continuous video. Rachel connected it to a spare monitor. The first clear image appeared just after 6 in the morning on the day of the original party. Linda walked through the service path carrying the old brass key. She opened the pool house, placed Hartwell towels on Dad's workbench, and handed entry instructions to 2 event workers. A second clip showed her testing the gate before the next reservation. A third showed her removing my private property notice and folding it into her handbag. The camera I believed was dead had recorded every visit. Mason copied the files, sealed the original recorder in an evidence bag, and smiled for the first time that day. "She brought you a questionable contract," he said. "Your father left you a witness." The evidence gave us a way to stop Linda, but Rachel found the detail that gave us a way to make her answer her own rules. 2 nights after we copied the recorder files, she sent me a link with 3 words in the message. "Look at this." The page belonged to a private venue rental platform. At the top was a photograph of Linda's backyard taken at sunset, with blue water reflecting beneath white patio lights and the stone deck arranged like a resort. The listing called it Hartwell Garden Pool and described the property as an exclusive setting for professional gatherings, family celebrations, networking events, and private receptions. 60 guests were permitted. Outside catering was allowed. Vendor trucks could enter with advance notice. Product displays could be placed around the patio as long as protective mats were used. The rate was $2,400 for 8 hours, plus cleaning and service fees. At the bottom of the page was a bright blue button that read "Book Now." I stared at it longer than I should have. Linda had argued that private property became a community resource whenever she saw an opportunity. Yet her own pool came with contracts, deposits, guest limits, insurance requirements, and a cancellation policy that protected every square foot of her deck. Rachel opened the calendar. Most summer weekends were unavailable, but one Saturday in June remained open. It was the same weekend the Polk County Pork Producers Cooperative needed a replacement site for our annual water conservation conference. The county fairgrounds had canceled our reservation after a plumbing failure damaged the meeting hall. Earl Jenkins had been calling hotels, community centers, and farm supply stores for 3 days. None had enough outdoor space for the irrigation demonstration. I called him and explained what Linda's listing allowed. Earl was silent for several seconds. "Are you asking whether we can hold a legitimate agricultural conference at a privately rented pool?" "That is exactly what I am asking." "Then we do it by the book," he said. We submitted the request under the cooperative's full legal name. The description stated agricultural water conservation, livestock biosecurity, equipment demonstrations, and producer networking. We listed 50 expected guests, 3 vendor trucks, 1 licensed caterer, folding tables, educational displays, and no live animals. We attached our insurance certificate and requested written approval for every item. Linda responded 11 minutes later. She accepted the reservation, added the cleaning charge, and sent a payment link through Hartwell Social Events. Rachel looked at the approval time and laughed once. She did not read the description. She read the total. I said, "We paid the deposit with the cooperative card and saved copies of every page." Mason reviewed the contract and confirmed that our event matched the listing. He warned us not to change a single detail without written permission. Earl agreed. No shortcuts, no surprises, no damage. We would leave the property cleaner than we found it. Linda had spent months using vague language and false paperwork to enter my property. We were going to enter hers with a reservation she had approved, a purpose we had disclosed, and a contract written by her own company. The blue button at the bottom of her listing had looked like an invitation. By the time we finished printing the confirmation, it looked more like a receipt for her next mistake. Earl treated the reservation like a county inspection. He created a checklist before anyone ordered coffee, and every line answered one of Linda's published requirements. The cooperative purchased a 1-day liability policy for $2 million. We registered all 3 vendor trucks, submitted their license plate numbers, and marked their parking spaces on a copy of Linda's property map. The caterer sent food permits, refrigeration records, and a menu that could be served without using her kitchen. We rented folding tables with rubber feet, placed protective mats beneath every display, and hired a cleaning crew that specialized in outdoor venues. Earl even ordered disposable shoe covers so nobody would track soil from a farm into Linda's backyard. There would be no livestock, no manure, no mud, and nothing placed in the pool. The conference focused on water conservation, sanitation systems, and practical ways small farms could reduce waste. One vendor brought a compact irrigation pump mounted inside a sealed demonstration case. Another prepared diagrams showing how filtered wash water could be reused safely. Every display was clean enough for a hotel meeting room. That mattered to me. I did not want Linda to claim we had damaged her property or misrepresented the event. I wanted her to face something worse, a gathering that followed her contract more carefully than she did. Mason reviewed the final plan at his office. He checked the arrival time, guest count, insurance language, catering rules, and cancellation terms. He made us request written approval for the white registration tent because the listing mentioned shade structures but did not define their size. Linda approved it within an hour. We requested permission to hang one cooperative banner along the rear fence. She approved that too. We asked whether informational materials could be placed on the patio tables. Her reply said professional displays were encouraged. Rachel printed every message and placed the pages in a binder arranged by date. The booking confirmation went first. The insurance certificate followed. Then came the site map, vendor approvals, payment receipt, guest list, catering permit, and Linda's written answers. I kept a second folder in my truck containing the evidence from my property, customer receipts, water bills, the false amenity license, certified land records, and still images from Dad's old recorder. Those documents were not part of the conference. They were there in case Linda denied her own business transaction or called the HOA. Earl assigned volunteers to guide vehicles from the entrance so nobody blocked a driveway. The event would begin at 8 o'clock and end at 4. The cleaning crew would arrive at 3:30. Noise would remain below the limit in Linda's contract. Coffee service would start first, followed by 2 presentations, lunch, and an afternoon equipment demonstration. 3 days before the event, Linda sent a cheerful automated message reminding us that the remaining balance was due. The email thanked us for choosing Hartwell Garden Pool and promised a polished private experience. Rachel paid the balance and saved the receipt. By Friday evening, every form was signed, every truck was registered, and every attendee had received parking instructions. I placed Dad's brass key beside the evidence folder on my kitchen table, then moved it into the safe. Linda had used that key to build a business behind my back. We would not need a key to enter her property. She had sent us the address, approved the purpose, accepted the money, and opened the gate herself. At 7:12 on Saturday morning, the first vendor truck rolled through Linda's open gate, followed by 29 clean pickups moving at walking speed through the cul-de-sac. Earl stationed 2 volunteers near the curb with printed parking maps, and every driver went exactly where Linda's approval email directed. The grass was wet, the air smelled like coffee and chlorine, and the white registration tent rose beside the pool without touching a single flower bed. By 7:45, 50 farmers had checked in, received green wristbands, and carried their materials to folding tables protected by rubber mats. The cooperative banner hung along the rear fence in the location Linda had approved. The catering crew arranged breakfast sandwiches beneath sealed warmers. Nobody entered the house. Nobody placed anything in the water. At 8 o'clock, Earl welcomed the group and introduced the first presentation on reducing water waste in livestock operations. That was when Linda opened her back door. She stared at the trucks, the displays, and the blue cooperative shirts as though the entire backyard had changed overnight. "What is happening here?" she demanded. I stepped away from the registration table and held up the booking confirmation. "Your approved professional event." She crossed the patio quickly, still wearing house shoes, and read the cooperative name on Earl's binder. Her eyes moved to the water conservation diagrams, then to the Hartwell social events receipt clipped behind the insurance certificate. This was supposed to be a private networking gathering. "It is," Earl said. "Every attendee is registered, and every activity appears in the event description you approved." Linda said the conference did not fit Willow Creek standards and ordered the vendors to leave. I showed her the written approval for the trucks, tent, catering, and displays. Her own doorbell camera faced us from above the back door, recording every word. "Then I am canceling the reservation," she said. Mason had predicted that. I opened the contract to the cancellation section and pointed to the clause requiring a full refund plus documented vendor costs for any cancellation after setup began. The total was more than $8,000. Linda stopped reading. Instead, she called Thomas Avery and told him an unauthorized commercial event was operating inside the neighborhood. Thomas arrived 15 minutes later with two other board members. Linda began explaining that I had misrepresented the booking, but Rachel handed Thomas a copy of the original request. The words agricultural water conservation and livestock biosecurity appeared in the first sentence. Linda's digital approval appeared beneath them. Thomas read the page twice. Then he asked why Hartwell Social Events had accepted the payment instead of the HOA. Linda said her company merely processed community reservations. Rachel opened the second binder. Inside were receipts from the parties held at my pool, all bearing the same company name. I added the certified title record, the excluded parcel map, the false amenity license, and still images from Dad's recorder showing Linda entering with the old key. Thomas took out his phone, signed into the association's financial account, and searched every deposit from the previous 3 months. Nothing matched the reservation amounts. Nothing showed pool revenue. Nothing mentioned my property. The backyard became quiet except for the steady hum of the filter and the soft voice of the presenter continuing beneath the tent. Linda looked at the board members, then at the cream-colored envelopes lined up across the table. "This is a private dispute," she said. Thomas closed the account screen. "Not if association resources supported your company." Earl announced the next session, and the farmers turned toward the irrigation display. The conference continued exactly as scheduled. Beside the pool, however, the board had stopped asking whether our event belonged there. They had started asking where Linda's money had gone. The conference ended at 4 o'clock exactly. The cleaning crew arrived at 3:30, folded every table, removed every protective mat, wiped the stone patio, and carried out each bag of trash. Earl walked the property with Linda's original condition checklist, while Rachel photographed the pool, lawn, fence, and outdoor furniture. Not one chair was damaged. Not one flower bed was disturbed. The water remained clear enough to reflect the white clouds moving above Willow Creek. The farmers left behind nothing except a signed attendance sheet, a paid invoice, and a better event record than any gathering Linda had ever managed. Thomas and the other board members stayed after the final truck departed. They asked Linda to provide the HOA authorization for Hartwell Social Events, the income reports from my pool, and the original amenity license. She produced explanations instead of records. By Monday morning, the board had suspended her authority and hired an independent accountant. Mason delivered our evidence package the same day. The audit lasted 3 weeks. It found that Linda had used HOA mailing lists, towels, wristbands, and staff time to support her private company. She had collected more than $16,000 from events at my property and had reported none of it to the association. The supposed amenity agreement had never been recorded, approved, or signed by my father. The date, logo, parcel number, and company information all contradicted public records. Her own pool rentals had also violated Willow Creek disclosure rules because she never reported the commercial activity to the board or her insurer. Linda resigned before the removal vote, but resignation did not erase the invoices. Hartwell Social Events refunded the remaining customers, reimbursed my water and maintenance costs, covered the legal expenses, and paid for a new security system. The county recorded a formal notice confirming that my 8.4 acres, pool, service lane, and pool house were private property with no shared access rights. Thomas mailed every resident a copy of the new conflict of interest policy. No board member could manage community business through a private company again. I replaced the brass pool house cylinder, installed cameras at both entrances, and mounted Dad's wooden Turner family pool sign beneath a clear weatherproof cover. Rachel placed the old green wristband, the false agreement, and one cream-colored Hartwell envelope inside our evidence file. I kept Dad's blue maintenance ledger on its original shelf. The money Linda had taken did not feel like profit when it came back. I used part of the settlement to repair the filter and deck, then donated the rest to a county water safety program for rural children. By late summer, the pool was open again. The pump hummed evenly beneath the floor. The gate stayed locked. The farm lane remained clear. One evening, I sat beside the water as chlorine mixed with the smell of cut grass and cooling soil. For months, that scent had warned me that strangers were on my property. Now it meant the place belonged to my family again. Linda had expected 50 farmers to embarrass themselves in her backyard. They arrived with insurance, permits, clean boots, and better manners than the business she had built from other people's property. They left her pool spotless. The audit handled everything that actually needed cleaning.